killing people in the West Bank who are actually shooting at Israeli soldiers. Yes, we killed people who shot at Israeli soldiers. I agree with that.
Against every 300 Palestinians you kill there. How many prisoners have you taken?
Proportionality has nothing to do with how many people die on one side versus the other. It's what one country
living on a different planet.
Their own borders. I'm not living
on
a different planet.
I'm
living in the real world.
Because Israel has killed 13,000 civilians, unarmed civilians, and 6,000 children under the age of 16 that Israel had killed with their bombing.
And you're expecting the entire world to believe Hamas's numbers. You're expecting the world to believe Hamas's numbers.
These
because
are
the
not
Gaza Ministry of Health is Hamas. Yeah, which independent international agency has verified them?
If you're doubting that children have been killed in Gaza, then you got some other problem.
No, I'm not doubting it. I'm not doubting it. I'm saying it's tragic. What I'm saying, though, is 49 days ago, Hamas launched a massive assault against a community in Israel. And up until this day, Israel is still trying to get the correct figure of the amount of dead. So how can you tell me that if Israel bombs a building and that building collapses, automatically 500 people are dead and 300 of them are babies? You can't. The numbers cannot be real unless they are actually verified and things are investigated.
There's a list of everybody who died, and every child that gets buried is on a register, and the register has been provided to all the media.
By whom? By whom? By whom? By whom?
I'm not going to argue. If you don't believe that Israel is killing people in Gaza, we've got some other problems we need to deal with.
Is the victim, who is the oppressor? That changes based on who we're talking to. But the distinction, Mr. Saleh, that the world is trying to make is that what happened on October 7th was an act of terror. That's not people fighting for the Palestinian cause. There are countries that stand...
It may have been an act of terror, but it was in response to acts of terror that Israel has been conducting for the last 56 years.
Sure, and that's what the Palestinian people have been saying, but that does not justify what happened on the 7th of October, which is what has led us to where we are today. But I want to get in Edward P. Joseph on this as well. And, you know, we're talking about what has happened not just in the last month and a half, but like Mr. Saleh was also pointing out, this is something that has been going on for decades together. Many countries like the United States have been accused of trying to wade in when it's convenient and then trying to gloss over and turn a blind eye when it's convenient to them. Do you think that's also part of the problem?
We'll turn to the U.S. policy in a sec, but let me say that Mr. Saleh is correct in respect that this conflict goes back decades. And what he neglects is, of course, that there is actions and agency on both sides, and which go back to the beginning, when we can find a beginning, which was the UN partition of then Palestine, the British mandate in Palestine in 1947, which did provide for a Palestinian state, and in which Jerusalem would have been under an internationalized city. And unfortunately, that was rejected. The Palestinian state was rejected. Arab states
exactly what happened
on the nation state. I'm sorry, I'm reading from a University of Michigan report on this, and the University of Michigan is highly favorable. Please do not interrupt me, sir. I did not interrupt you, and I conceded to you that there are concerns, and Mr. Saleh, I will concede to you as well that Israeli policies in the West Bank have been oppressive, and this settlement growth is wrong and oppressive. So I'm conceding that to you, Mr. Saleh, and I would appreciate perhaps if you would concede some complicity and mistakes on the part of Palestinians, and especially it would be good if you would acknowledge the mistakes and the policies of Hamas, which are not about liberation. And it is incorrect to say that, because it's not just that Israel was having a blockade, it is Egypt that is also providing that blockade. And Mr. Saleh, you need to address why President Sisi also, prior and subsequent to October 7th, maintains the blockade on Gaza. You need to address that. And one other question. It wasn't because of oppression. Mr. Saleh, please. I did not interrupt you. I ask you respectfully, please do not interrupt me. Hamas's objectives were not liberation. What they were afraid of, the active catalyst for this, was the fear of the deal with Saudi Arabia. And everyone knows that Saudi Arabia would have insisted upon for diplomatic relations with Israel would have insisted upon justice for the Palestinians, justice that I want to see, that many also who are Israeli citizens, I am not, I'm an American citizen, but many Israelis also want to see justice for Palestinians. And that would have absolutely been integral to that understanding with Saudi Arabia, and Hamas could not accept that. They would have been marginalized, and their vision for exterminating, annihilating Israel would have been gone. And that's the fact, and that's what President Biden here, we turn to American policy, he understands this. President Biden understands this, and he wrote just this past week in the Washington Post, we stand firmly with the Israeli people as they defend themselves against the murderous nihilism of Hamas. Mr. Saleh, you can take that up with President Biden. That is his position. That is the position.
I'm not going to interrupt you, but you can't talk for the rest of the day.
Murderous nihilism.
Sure.
Justice for the Palestinians is what we want to see. Hamas is not part of that vision.
And that distinction is something that I was talking about earlier as well. But Faisal Saleh, go ahead. You had a rebuttal to make. Yes, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, Egypt and some of the other countries that you referred to are client states of the United States, and the United States dictates to them their political position and in full control of all these countries. So let's not bring that as a key factor, because it's not. The Saudi deal, all this stuff is all under U.S. control, and U.S. is supporting Israel 100% and complicit in everything Israel is doing. So basically, for all intents and purposes, these are considered one party in this situation. I mean, I'm a Palestinian. My family had a house and property and businesses in a village 5 kilometers east of Yafa. We were driven out of there at gunpoint. And that is the biggest injustice that was done to 800,000 Palestinians. And
what
those
year?
Palestinians are 10 million people.
What
now.
Year? What year were you driven out? Just out of curiosity.
This particular thing started in 1947 when
was your family driven out?
Zionist forces. Don't interrupt me, because I didn't interrupt. You wanted no interruption, so you got to give me that too. So there was a plan by the Zionist forces to expel and depopulate all of the Palestinian cities and villages in Palestine, and that began in 47 and went on until well into 1949. The result of it was 500 cities and villages that were totally depopulated, some at gunpoint. There were 36 massacres that took place to terrorize the rest of the population in fleeing. So that is the big problem. That is the fundamental
Saleh, I don't think anybody is disagreeing to that. We had Edward P. Joseph also come out and concede to that, the fact that, yes, there have been these instances, these excesses in the past, but this is what we're talking about. We're talking about how there is a distinction from what happened, what has been happening for decades, and what happened on the 7th of October, why we're actually here. Unfortunately, I'm completely out of time. I leave it at that. I have to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on this broadcast with your perspective. We do hope that this 4-day ceasefire runs successfully. Hostages are back home. Palestinians are back home as well. Shifting focus now to an issue here in India. This is coming in from Uttarakhand, from Uttarkashi, where the rescue of the tunnel, of the people 41 trapped in the tunnel, unfortunately has been halted again. It's been 13 days. There is no respite coming to the fore for those 41 laborers. The auger machine, which was used in the rescue operations, has unfortunately broken down. It has now been taken off, is what we're learning. We are expecting a briefing coming in from the site in just a few minutes from now to get us the latest update. But Anshul, my colleague, joining us, getting us more details on this. Anshul, what is the status? We initially, a couple of hours ago, were told that perhaps tonight's the night where these 41 laborers could taste freedom at last. But unfortunately, I don't think that's happening.
So yes, we have been reporting that how the American auger machine initially started working yet again at approximately 4:30 in the evening, and it actually, once the machine started, it was successfully able to drill to 2.5 meters of the debris. At this point in time, 49 meters of tunnel has already been dug. Post that, another obstacle, metal objects, came to the fore, and now the auger machine is yet again being withdrawn. And now authorities are also looking at other options through which this digging operation could happen. One of those is manually as well. But yes, nothing has been confirmed at this point in time. A meeting is going to happen within the next few hours, in which it will be decided if the further future course of action of drilling through the debris is going to be through the auger machine, or is it going to be manually. If at all it happens manually, then the time that it would take for them to reach anywhere close to where the workers are might extend to 2 days now. So yes, this call has to be taken by the authorities if at all they want to go ahead and try the auger machine yet again, or if they are planning to go ahead and carry on with the manual digging as well. Because remember, over the last 48 hours, there has been very little to no success that has been found by the
Yes.
American auger machine. In fact, the 45-meter mark was reached approximately 48 to 60 hours ago, and now today as we are speaking, that mark is somewhere around 48.8 to 49 meters, is what we are being told. So yes, no respite for the workers
It's
who
the
are
last
staying
stretch,
inside.
but
Another
unfortunately, that's
disappointment
taking
that
longer
has
than expected. 12 days and counting. There seemed to be some light at the end of the tunnel for these 41, but unfortunately, their wait continues for now. Anshul, thank you so much for getting us the latest from on ground there. With that, it's time for a quick break here on this edition of The Right Stand. But on the other side, there's an exclusive interaction with author Hindol Sen Gupta. Do stay tuned for that.
Hello, Moto.
Co-powered by pediatrician and nephrologist who's with us this morning to bring us more details on this entire story. Dr. Bagai, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on the show. Dr. Bagai, if I may ask you, I assume you've been looking at the reports that are coming out of China right now. China's just told the World Health Organization that there are no unrecognizable pathogens in this spreading this pneumonia that they're calling. What does that mean? Can you just break down to our audiences? And the reports coming out of China, do they strike you as a cause for worry or not, sir?
Yeah, so China is always a cause of worry. What is available in public domain is these are viral pneumonias or bacterial pneumonias. We are not sure. There are nodular lesions in the chest. There are reports of respiratory syncytial virus, influenza, or mycoplasma pneumonia. Now, these are highly transmissible and airborne diseases. It can go from close contact person to person through fomites and various other modes of transmission, human to human transmission. It's more rapidly progressive, especially pathogenic in smaller children and school-going children and infants. So far, I think we've got no concise data or cause or etiology as far as China is concerned. My only concern is that there may be another cover-up, much like they did in COVID, of concealing and misleading facts and then ultimately misinformation. So I think WHO needs to go into overdrive, send the team there, get the samples analyzed, do the serology, and let the world know what is happening. If a child has it in an index family, there is what we call as household transmission. Adults can get it. There is free flow of international traffic and travel. This may actually exit the boundaries of China very, very soon and go into other Southeast Asian countries and indeed into Asia and Europe and elsewhere. So I think we need a very, very firm control on this. And I think WHO needs to be a lot more stricter, sterner, and a lot more proactive than what they did in the early part of COVID.
Can I also ask you, sir, one of the sort of unfortunate byproducts of COVID is that we've heard of multiple cases of quote-unquote mysterious illnesses that have taken place across the world. To some degree, we've almost become averse. We hear the story and it's a story we've almost become used to. When you come to know stories like this, how do you know which are the stories to pay attention to? Which are the ones where there are red flags? For example, this one where you're saying there is a cause for concern.
Yeah, so I think any outbreak, be it an initial epidemic of whatever magnitude, small, medium, or large, I think needs a very careful attention. We've learned, and then through the hard way, through COVID, that we didn't pay adequate attention to what China was doing. And then the infection spread very, very rapidly. Within a couple of months, it had reached Italy, Europe, Southeast Asia, and then rest of the world. So anything which is airborne, any viral or bacterial infection which has human-to-human transmission or household contact transmission needs very, very aggressive attention. The other concern is we don't know what the impact of the immune status is after the prolonged zero COVID lockdown. And I'm sure there will be a lot of variations and a lot of mutations in a host of viruses. because the society at large has not been exposed to develop what we call as the natural immunity. So there are a lot of factors to be considered from an immunological point of view, but I think this is a red flag. We need to be cautious. We cannot believe what China says. That we've learned through the hard way. And I would request that WHO sends its team immediately